Hello and welcome to another God is a Geek preview chat. My name's Mick Fraser and I'm joined here today by the unstoppable Sean Smith. How are you, mate?
Very well, mate. Yeah, nice to be here. Nice to speak to you.
But Sean, you've been down in London recently and you've actually played a game that I'm really, really hyped for, and I'm quite jealous that you've played it, which is Dragon's Dogma 2.
Yep, and it didn't disappoint at all.
Fantastic. I mean, I've seen bits of it because I've seen like gameplay floating around, but obviously you've had it in your hands, so you've actually played it, and it looks quite similar to the first one. Like just in action, it looks quite similar. So I know Capcom tend not to really, they don't make great big leaps in the way they develop games like a franchise. I mean, look at like Monster Hunter. They kind of stick with what they're comfortable with, and they develop individual franchises to be very different, whereas the games in the franchises are quite similar usually, if that makes sense. Like they have a lot of styles and genres, and I noticed that it does look quite a lot like the first one. But how does it play?
So it plays very similarly to the first one, I've got to say, but it's quite clear straight off the bat that, as I said in my preview piece, that they've turned everything up a notch, and it's like a beefed up, doubled down version of the original game. I believe some of the maps even are going to be the same or very similar to the original, and there's a lot of familiar enemies from the original. But what they've actually managed to do is introduce quite subtly some new mechanics into it that were really fun to play with on in the hour that I got to spend with it. And it's kind of one of those games that's almost a bit of a cult classic, the original, but something that anyone that played it would be rightfully very excited for an improved sequel. So the first thing is that it looks great. It was an early build. There were few little frame rate issues along the way, but it looks fantastic. It looks a big improvement on the original, and it introduces, as I say, a couple of new mechanics for the combat and improvements in the AI and the way that the pawns behave. So for the uninitiated, there was this really unique system that no one has really replicated.
Which is surprising.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. Yeah. So you've got these companions that you can bring along with you on your quest called pawns. And the game gives you the opportunity to design your own pawns, as it were, and you can share them online so that they can be a part of other people's playthrough as well. Now the pawns are kind of with you all the time. They're constantly talking to you. They're able to assist in battle. They're able to heal. They're able to use magic. And this time around, they seem a lot more on the ball. And they still chatter, and I love that aspect of it. Like the kind of dialogue is really cheesy, and it was like putting on a familiar pair of slippers, stepping into the arena with these pawns. But they seem a lot more intelligent this time around, and I've seen some footage online of some of the cool stuff that they've been doing, and like giving the main player a leg up to reach treasure chests that are out of reach, and
that's cool.
Just behaving in a much more kind of dynamic way.
Yeah, because they had that dialogue, didn't they, in the first one? It's become quite memeable now, where they sort of it was I can't even remember. We ought to go that way, and it was like they had that really cheesy, weird kind of, I don't know, it was like pidgin English. It was like,
So
and I'm kind of hoping they're still doing that, because it's quite unique.
They absolutely do. And you've got what this is a kind of a Japanese developer and development team working with a source material that's very almost sort of English in terms of it. It's by saying English, I believe that the place where it's set, Groundsys, was based on a part of Sicily, but it's kind of King Arthur-y. It's kind of got the sort of Western RPG feel to it.
Yeah.
But the kind of
but in that weird hybrid way that you get when East meets West, and it's very unique, isn't it? I mean, Dragon's Dogma, like the first game, there's nothing else that's quite like it. Like there's, we've seen a lot of Western RPGs or Japanese RPGs that, like you said, they do that. They kind of incorporate those elements of Western RPGs, but nothing does it quite the way that Dragon's Dogma does it, because it's really like the pawn system is unique. The world is massive. Even the quest system was unique.
The quest system's unique, and the one thing I will say is that the pawns this time are much more helpful. That they seem to know what they're doing in terms of the quests. So like they'll guide you, they'll tell you where to go. They know where you're meant to be traveling, and it can get a little bit hairy, particularly at night when you kind of lose your bearings and you combat by just the light of a lantern, and it becomes really claustrophobic. But the pawns seem to be a lot more in tune with what you're actually supposed to be doing. But the other thing with the kind of RPG style that it is it does have elemental attacks and kind of you get like a fire-based attack, or you get like a lightning bolt, but it doesn't feel quite like a Japanese RPG normally would do. Where they normally fit this kind of even playing like an action RPG, like what they did with the Final Fantasy remake. You still got all the elemental magic and stuff like that. It kind of steps away from that, and it's more focused on the grunt of the combat and using the pawns to your advantage. And climbing is a big thing with Dragon's Dogma. It was in the original, and it very
I was going to ask about the combat, because I was going to say, because that was really cool in the first game, clinging on to the side of fucking giant dragons and monsters. And
so grappling is a big thing. So you can grab hold of enemies and sort of throw them. And then later on, I managed to get myself on top of a griffin, and it flew up into the air, so you can kind of cling onto its back while it's flying. And then while you're on its back, there may be like harpies swarming around, so you can attack them while you're in the air. So it's like real, it goes proper bonkers really quickly. And then at night,
fantastic.
It's just what every playthrough that I had was different as well. So there would be like one playthrough where there were like loads of wolves. So it was just like picking off all these wolves and goblins, and then like the harpies would come. But then when night falls, all of a sudden you're like, shit, like there's a skeleton looms into view, and then all these ghostly wraith things start flying around, and you're like, shit, what do I do? So it's just it's such an enjoyable game. It's still really hard, it's not an easy game, but I just can't wait to play the full thing. I think this is only the tip of the iceberg. I think Capcom have got they would have held back a lot from.
Of course,
this is going to be a huge game. They've got much more processing power under the hood of the PS5 than they had previously, and I think that when this actually drops, if their recent releases are anything to go by, we're going to get a lot of content. We're going to get a lot of new stuff. If you look at how generous they've been with like Resident Evil 4, with Street Fighter 6 is arguably one of the most huge out of the box fighting games in terms of content that we've ever seen. And I think that they're on a really golden run of video games at the moment, Capcom, and it was clear to see that the chaps that were showing us off this sequel were really pleased at how well received it was. And I just hope that they invite us up there to play it again at some point in between now and the release.
Yeah, because that's going to be a long wait, and it's going to be a hard wait as well, from the sound of it.
I know.
But
doesn't
anyway,
have a release date yet.
No, that's the problem as well. I mean, Capcom, they'll hold that, won't they? Hopefully next year. Hopefully it's not going to be one that we're waiting for year upon year, because like you, I can't wait to get hold of it. And I haven't even had it in my hands yet, and you have, so I can imagine it must be agony for you. So you can go and you can read Sean's preview on godisageek.com. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Maybe hit that bell icon too. And if you want to support us via Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/GuyIsAGeek. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks.
Cheers, mate.
No worries. Thanks, man.
Bye-bye. Bye, guys.